The film opens with a young woman named Becky being interrogated by the authorities regarding a recent incident in the woods. However, she suffers from memory loss. We then flash back to 2 weeks prior to the questioning. Becky's dad surprises her by picking her up early from school, whisking her away for a unique weekend getaway. Across town, a transport vehicle is relocating 5 convicts. 4 of them belong to a faction led by Dominic, a man with white supremacist ideals. The other 2 prisoners are Apex, Cole, and Hammond. During the ride, Dominic and his crew exchange knowing glances. Suddenly, Apex violently chokes the unaffiliated inmate until he loses consciousness. Dominic seizes the moment, alerting the driver and forcing the vehicle to stop. Coincidentally, Becky and her dad pull up to a gas station at the same time. A news report blares about the escape of 4 inmates from a prison transport, but Becky pays no attention. Instead, she slyly slips some candy into her pocket. She then notices a family nearby, all dressed in identical outfits, which triggers her grief. Becky retreats to a secluded spot to watch an old video of her late mother, who passed away from cancer the year before. Once back on the road, Becky throws a tantrum when she realizes their destination is the family lake house, a place that held deep meaning for her late mother. Becky believes her dad is intent on selling it after her mother's death. However, her father surprises her by revealing he has changed his mind about selling it, which instantly calms her down. She affectionately showers their dog, Diego, with attention. But her joy is short-lived when another car pulls up belonging to her father's new girlfriend, Kayla, and her son Ty. Though they greet Becky warmly, she remains cold, even as their dog, Dora, tries to make a friendly introduction. To ease the tension, Becky's father encourages her to retrieve Diego. Meanwhile, Dominic and Apex, disguised as police officers, pull over an unsuspecting driver. After stopping him, Dominic violently kills the man while his terrified children watch from the back seat. Back at the lake house, dinner is tense due to Becky's refusal to accept Kayla and Ty. Her father eventually tries to break the ice by acknowledging how difficult the past year has been, but stresses the importance of moving forward. He then drops the bombshell that he plans to marry Kayla. Predictably, Becky reacts poorly. When her father follows her outside, a heartbroken Becky storms off into the woods. With Diego at her side. In the woods, she takes refuge in her childhood playhouse, where her rage boils over as she trashes the place. Her anger begins to subside when she sees an old painting of her mother, which triggers a wave of nostalgia, taking her back to a tender memory of singing to her mother in the hospital. Meanwhile, back at the lake house, Kayla is clearing the table when the doorbell rings. Hoping to ease the tension with Becky, she answers it. Jeff, upon returning, finds Kayla ushering a stranger into the house. The man is Dominic, who claims to be searching for a lost dog in the woods. While rummaging through her old locker, Becky discovers a mysterious key. Intrigued, she pockets it for later. Back at the house, Dominic turns his attention to Dora, spewing hateful rhetoric about mixed breeds, claiming they lose their natural edge and predatory instincts. Jeff, visibly upset by his tirade, politely asks the man to leave. The situation takes a violent turn when Apex steps forward and, following Dominic's orders, chokes Jeff. Dominic then stalks Kayla, who tries to find refuge in a bedroom corner. Under Dominic's instructions, Apex smashes her phone to prevent her from calling for help. Yet, a flicker of humanity surfaces in Apex, and instead of killing them, he spares their lives. He instructs Kayla to run into the woods, and she quickly escapes, with Dora faithfully at her side. Meanwhile, hidden in the woods, Becky overhears the sinister voices of Cole and Hammond. Their paths cross with Kayla, and they demand to know what she's doing there. Gullible, Ty blurts out that they are looking for Becky, but Kayla, thinking fast, lies and claims that Becky is the dog's name. Witnessing the chilling moment when Cole shoots Dora in cold blood, Becky steels herself. She decides to go it alone, leaving Diego behind in the playhouse. Quietly, she makes her way back to the lake house, where she observes her father, Kayla, and Ty being held captive in the living room. One of the thugs reports killing the family's dog, mistakenly thinking Becky was the dog. Dominic announces his plan to retrieve his objective and leave. However, Kayla, filled with doubt, fears they will be silenced since they've seen the men's faces. Dominic heads to the basement, searching for a specific item within a metal container, but frustration builds when he finds it empty. Meanwhile, Becky gains entry to the house through her bedroom window. Unfortunately, the basement ladder leads directly into her room, and Dominic is on his way up. In a panic, Becky grabs her walkie-talkie and hides as Dominic enters, scanning the room suspiciously. He finds Becky's backpack and shows it to her father, immediately realizing that Becky is not the dog's name, but their daughter's. He reveals that he's after a key with a specific symbol, but none of them know about the key dot. When Dominic doesn't get answers, he turns his attention to Becky, the last person to question. In a desperate attempt to protect his daughter, Jeff lies, saying Becky is in Atlanta with her mother. Dominic, unconvinced, points out Becky's phone in her backpack. Despite this, Jeff stubbornly sticks to his story. Frustrated, Dominic shoots Kayla in the leg as punishment for Jeff's defiance, causing her to scream in agony. This horrifying scene forces Becky to break her silence. From a safe distance, she transmits a message through her walkie-talkie, bluffing that she's reached a neighbor's house and has called the police. Dominic, convinced it's just a child's trick, dismisses the idea of the signal reaching that far. Becky remains hidden on the property while Dominic and Apex ominously lead Jeff outside for a chat, declaring that today is the day Becky must prove her loyalty. Dominic begins issuing threats, barking commands through the walkie-talkie. He leverages Jeff's life, promising torture unless Becky hands over the contents of the mysterious tin box hidden in the basement. Intimidated, Becky denies having the key, a detail Dominic never mentioned. This slip-up reveals to Dominic that Becky knows where the key is. To prove his seriousness, Dominic heats a fire poker until it glows red and presses it into Jeff's cheek, while Becky listens in horror. He offers Jeff a chance to speak, hoping for a desperate plea to Becky, but instead, Jeff surprises him. He urges Becky to run and save herself. Furious at Jeff's defiance, Dominic plunges the hot fire poker into Jeff's stomach. Witnessing this brutality, Becky gives in. She retrieves the key from the playhouse, but just as she returns, Jeff, in a final surge of adrenaline, breaks free from his restraints and escapes into the woods. He finds Becky, expressing his love for her, only to be gunned down by Dominic moments later. Overcome with grief and rage, Becky takes the key and stabs Dominic in the eye before fleeing. Dominic stumbles back into the house, his injured eye gruesome. He orders Hammond to help remove the key, but Hammond fumbles with the scissors. Furious, Dominic grabs a knife and handles the problem himself. Without hesitation, he commands his men to scour the woods and find Becky. By the lake, Becky is overwhelmed by her emotions when the crackle of the walkie-talkie breaks the silence. It's Cole, his voice dripping with mockery, echoing through the trees. Becky runs toward the safety of her playhouse, finding solace in Diego's loyal presence. Cole approaches, but shows a flicker of fear upon seeing Diego. Luckily, he is unarmed at that moment. Trying to manipulate her, Cole offers false promises of safety for her and her family in exchange for the key. But his mention of her stepmother only strengthens Becky's resolve to cling to the precious memories of her real mother. Refusing to be cowed, Becky transforms from a scared girl into a fierce defender. She grabs a broken ruler, preparing to fight back. Becky, perched on the playhouse roof, crafts a plan to distract Cole. She throws a coin into the woods, and as Cole investigates, she silently descends behind him using a hidden zipline. With a swift and calculated move, Becky overpowers Cole with the broken ruler, effectively neutralizing him. Inside the house, Apex tends to Kayla's gunshot wound. Sensing a flicker of humanity in him, Kayla seizes the chance to plead for mercy. But before she can fully appeal to his better nature, Dominic calls for Apex. In a chilling display of dominance, Dominic forces Apex to point a gun at his own chest, reminding him of their 9 years in prison together and the meticulous planning that led to this moment. Dominic threatens to kill himself if he suspects betrayal from Apex, who, guilt-ridden, reaffirms his loyalty. Meanwhile, Becky sneaks back to the lake house, undetected, and throws a walkie-talkie onto the porch for Dominic to find. In a calm yet threatening voice, she hints at her growing resourcefulness. Shaken, Dominic asks Kayla to reason with Becky, hoping she can convince her to surrender. Kayla, honest about her strained relationship with Becky, expresses doubt that she can persuade her. Desperate, Dominic sends his men after Becky. She, in turn, carefully sets a trap by the lake. Hammond soon discovers Cole's body, sending him into a panic. Moments later, Becky taunts him, luring him into a chase. She leads him to a dock, where he trips on a fishing line tied to sharp nails hidden in a plank. Becky delivers a blow with another rigged plank, but Hammond manages to wrest control of it. A struggle ensues, and Hammond loses his balance, falling into the water. Unable to swim, he flounders and screams for help. As Becky faces the imposing Apex, Diego rushes to help but is easily knocked unconscious. Becky, filled with fear for her dog, runs to his side. Apex, towering over her, lifts her effortlessly, but underestimates her will to fight. In the ensuing struggle, Apex prepares to choke slam her, but hesitates. His grip loosens, and he warns Becky that violence leaves scars, and that it's not too late to choose a better path. Defying Dominic's orders, Apex walks away, leaving Becky and the conflict behind. Diego stirs, proving he's not badly hurt. Grief-stricken, Becky returns to her father's side, whispering apologies as she retrieves his car keys. Determined to save Kayla and Ty, she heads toward the lake house. Peering through a window, she sees them unharmed. Just as she signals them, Dominic enters the room. Kayla, quick on her feet, distracts Dominic, allowing Becky to slip away unnoticed. Confused, Kayla confronts Dominic, demanding to know his motives. He responds with white supremacist rhetoric, claiming the key holds the power to purify his cause. Disgusted, Kayla calls him a fool. Their argument escalates, interrupted by the sudden blare of a car alarm. Dominic rushes to investigate while Kayla hobbles to the kitchen, using a knife to free herself and Ty. Outside, in the parking lot, Dominic mistakes the returning car for Apex. Dominic lunges, trying to open a car door, but a fierce struggle ensues, and he manages to slam the door shut. Convinced Becky is inside, he draws his gun, ready to fire. However, Becky isn't in that car. In a twist, she's hiding in another vehicle entirely. Desperate to escape, Becky throws her car into gear and crashes into Dominic. Unfortunately, she loses control and slams into a tree, her inexperience with driving betraying her. Thankfully, the car's safety features activate, automatically summoning help. Shaken but unharmed, Becky regains her composure and heads to the garage, grabbing a container of gasoline. Meanwhile, Dominic frantically searches for her, eventually stumbling upon Becky singing near a fire pit. To his surprise, instead of attacking immediately, Dominic acknowledges Becky's cleverness and ruthlessness. He offers her a twisted deal: join his cause and become his protege. Becky, unsurprisingly, rejects him. In a daring move, Becky aims a makeshift flamethrower and Nerf gun filled with gasoline at Dominic. Enraged and injured, Dominic lunges at her, managing to snatch the key before aiming his gun. Just as he's about to fire, Apex intervenes. A tense standoff follows, but Dominic, consumed by rage, shoots Apex. He then turns his weapon on Becky, but she dodges and seeks refuge in the garage. As Becky's mind races, she spots the lawnmower and uses it in a final, desperate act of self-defense to overpower Dominic. Exhausted and traumatized, she encounters Apex, who apologizes for leaving her to face Dominic alone. However, Becky's grief and fury consume her, and she shoots Apex as well. Left alone, Becky stares at the mysterious key, its purpose still unknown. Kayla and Ty find her near the barn, her expression vacant as police sirens wail in the distance. They try to comfort her. The scene then cuts back to the beginning, where a bewildered Becky feigns ignorance during the police interrogation. One of the officers expresses concern about the level of violence Becky seems capable of. The movie ends on this unsettling note.